Hello.
Hello, how you
I just
doing?
I just exited and like restarted the meeting. I thought, did I open the wrong one?
No, I'm on the East Coast, and so I'm kind of like, let
Yeah,
me let me catch up to myself here. But I'm here, happy to be here.
I was scrambling this morning too. Like, my kids are on spring break, and so our hours are funky. They're up later, and so we're up later, which means I'm sleeping
Aw.
later, because I'm trying to be present for that, and yeah, all the things,
All the things.
all the things.
Yes, all the
Oh, there's
things.
Phyllis. Phyllis is here.
Oh, good. I was thinking about Phyllis.
Hi, Phyllis.
Hi, Phyllis.
Ooh, I like that sweater on you or that top on you. That looks good.
And the earrings are pretty too.
Yeah, she's all ready to go.
She's dolled up, but
Yes.
not hearing us. Looks like by the perplexed
What are they
scrunchy.
talking about?
Can you hear us, Phyllis? Oh, I can see it's like delayed.
Choppy.
Yes, I can.
Oh, good.
We have a doc wanted to let you know that I won't be able to stay.
Okay.
Okay.
You're here now, though.
I am here now, and I'll send you something in the chat. Uh,
Hi, Susie.
Susie,
Good morning.
good morning. How are you today?
I'm okay.
You okay?
A lot
I
of
bought
bothness
that.
going on today.
You what?
What?
But a lot of bothness going on today. So
Not a
okay.
bothness. Well, that's
That's
life includes bothness.
that's a good way to describe it. Bothness.
Bothness is good.
Yeah. I bought that Brene Brown book, Atlas of the Heart. Started reading it.
How do you like it so far?
I bought the hardback version because I
Yeah.
thought, it's going to be pretty. I know it. And
Yeah.
I set it on my coffee table. My dog ate the corner of the cover. So proud of
Oh.
herself. Like she did something real good. She's a puppy, a pit
Oh.
puppy. She has to chew on everything.
Oh God.
And I was like, Liza. And I was, oh, but I opened it instantly when I got it in the mail. And I'm telling you, the quotes are so relatable. And they're like full page quotes in
Yep.
color. And
Yep.
it's beautiful.
It is. I'm glad you got it. Yeah, it's like a coffee table book. It's the kind of thing you can open it up and read one quote. Like you just leave it around and then you're like, oh, I need a little inspiration. I need a
It was
little.
funny. The first one I opened it up to, it said boredom is an invitation, or boredom is a sign of something, you're an invitation for your imagination or something. And it's
Indeed.
funny because growing up, my dad used to tell us boredom was the sign of a small mind. And I was like, that's so mean, Dad, but kind of true. But so I sent him that picture of that quote, and I was like, Dad, this is such a much nicer way of saying what you were trying to say growing up. I know this is what you really meant.
Oh, yep. That's good when we can turn around and just make it an offering, to, yeah, I'm here in Florida. My mom is turning 80 tomorrow. And, it's like the ways of thinking, the conditioned ways of thinking are very obvious, and I'm letting a lot of things go by. And then sometimes I just say, Mom, can you say that a different way? Like, is that really what you want to say? Because sort of like the judgments come out, really just judgments like, and she's such a loving person. But sometimes there's a lot of judgments. Yes, Phyllis. It sounds big. That sounds like a lot. And I'm glad you're here.
glad to see you all.
Totally. And it's even, Phyllis, I just want to say, I'm so glad you're here, just even for a part of it, because when things like what you're dealing with are happening, you need to be here even more. You know what I mean? So you can just take a moment for yourself and exhale into the space of your own heart
And-
and of us. It's a little frozen. You, Phyllis, are a little frozen. Ah, you're back, I think.
Yeah, the param.
It's glitching, Phyllis. We can't hear you and we want to. Maybe she's gonna. It might. What did you say, Phyllis? Because it disappeared. You disappeared.
We had the paramedics here last Tuesday, and today we have a doctor's appointment that I can't miss.
Yes,
I-
we understand.
Yes, I'm trying.
You are. Well, you're actually doing it because you're here. You know, you're
I am.
juggling. There's so much juggling in life, really. There's immense amounts of juggling, especially for rare mothers, you know. And at any point when we're navigating anybody who has some sort of illness or challenge, you know. So, huge.
My connection's bad.
It's a little
Gotta do
glitchy.
some-
Can you
gotta do
hear?
some-
Can you hear me, Phyllis? Because I want to do the meditation while you're
I can
here.
hear.
Okay. That's more on the communicating end. Where's my phone? Oh, there's my phone. I'm here in the guest bedroom in my parents' house. So I'm going to read you a Mary Oliver poem just because I can. You know, because she's so wonderful. And then we will meditate for 8 minutes. So this is also from this book I was reading, Risking Everything, 110 poems of love and revelation. It's just a really nice collection, edited by Roger Houston. So the one that jumped out at me today is Wild Geese, which is one of her most well-known poems, but I don't feel like you can over experience it actually, because it's just that good. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Thank you, Mary Oliver, for your well-lived life. You can just let your eyes close. Let your spine be easy and long. And just allow yourself to breathe. Let your breath be the invitation to soften, to let go into the sanctity of this moment, inclusive of everything that's happening. Of all the tests and challenges, the trials that are tugging at your sleeves, blocking your way. Inclusive of the open sky. The trees outside your window, standing gracefully. Bearing witness to the elements as they come and go, rain and wind and sun, possibly snow. Breathing into the space of this moment that we are sharing together in our wonderful community. Every breath is an opportunity to unhook from the thoughts that are making you clench or grimace just for right now. Just like when you pinch a safety pin and that sheet on the line is set free, so too can you set your mind free. Just noticing if it's possible for this to be a moment of respite, or perhaps a moment where you can allow something that made you smile to come in, something in nature, something you heard or read. Just seeing if you can allow a moment of smiling or laughing. If there have been any moments of goofiness or silliness, amidst all of the ups and downs of your life and the lives of those you love, the ups and downs of the world. Just notice if you can smile, smile, smile into yourself. Smile into your heart. See what it's like to allow yourself to smile. Smile into the goodness that courses through your veins. Your ability to laugh at yourself. You might notice how your body responds to smiling. You might notice if it softens or lets go. Letting yourself smile into your own heart. Smiles can lift up the sadness or the fear, the grief, and the pain. Take a moment and maybe rest your hands on your heart, thanking your heart for its depth, for its resiliency, and thank yourself for being able to access, even for a moment, a smile. Right now, you're making a deposit in your heart, deposit of goodness, deposit of the energy of a smile. And smiles carry their own magic, their own potential for transformation. Just take a few minutes and reflect on that meditation. And if you want, what is the role of smiles and laughter in your life, in your relationship? How does that support you to bring a smile, to bring some levity? So maybe we'll just take a few minutes so we'll have time, some sharing. Just see what's here for you.
Can I share? Because I don't have much time. I have to leave at 10:30. Richard and I watched a program together. It was about birds and humans. Have you seen it? Birds and Humans. And it's called, I think it's called Earth. Yeah, anyway, I don't have time to talk about it, but
Is it
you got to
is
see
one
it.
of the ones with Richard Attenborough? Is it one of the
I
ones?
don't remember.
he does? Okay, we'll find it.
The other thing I wanted to share was my grandmother and great grandmother both had Alzheimer's when they passed away. And so Richard said my agreement is that he would, if I got Alzheimer's, he would lock the doors so I didn't wander off, and he would take care of me.
Mhm.
Well, it got reversed.
Mm.
And he laughed about that. So there, there's the doctor. Okay, I gotta go. I love you
Right.
guys.
We love you. Well,
Well, that was good for a few minutes.
it was. It's always such a pleasure to have Phyllis with us.
Yeah.
Well, let's just take a few minutes to reflect on how laughter and smiling supports us in our lives and our relationships. I'm curious, what what comes up around laughter and humor, and how does it support you?
It's huge for me. It's huge. It's something actually that I mean, I kind of realized, I guess, years back. But I had little kids and play, right? And that you're always doing that anyway as a mom because that's how they learn about the world is through play, you know. And I really kind of honed in on it, I think, when I was teaching,
Mhm.
because as an elementary school teacher, I have a background in psych and worked with some pretty rough kids, going through all of that. And that was kind of my specialty as a teacher was working with those kiddos that either had really significant needs behaviorally, emotionally, physically, um, or the kids that were just really, really tough and very trauma affected. And I started to realize that one, humor was my sanity, right, to get through it, but it was also a big relationship builder. And it was a way to lighten the just the gravity sometimes of big situations. And then I, would reflect on that. And, you know, that was one thing always from colleagues, and family now too, going through all of this is that, you always have a way to make a funny, right? Or we can always hear you laughing before we can see you, those kinds of things. And it's true, even on the hardest days when I'm feeling like the absolute, I really do lean to humor and to like finding a silver lining in things that I can laugh about, and I didn't realize, I guess, until family started pointing it out and until this last little hiccup with Quincy. I don't even want to call it a hiccup. It's like a roadblock, um, has gotten in our way that, like, I am the one still inserting, you know, um, trying to at least insert humor and, find ways to laugh and play still and, do all of those things because it makes it a much more enjoyable place to be.
Absolutely. So how do you do that though? Like, where do you go inside your mind, inside your heart, to find the entry point to the funny?
You know, I've kind of had to have a talk with myself years back. We're military family, and we got stationed in Great Falls, Montana. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it is a place where people have lived all their lives. They don't leave, they don't travel outside. Lots of poverty, lots of neglect. It's not a very pretty place. The places around it are, but it's not. And I was really depressed about that. And I thought I brought my kids here, really, and we're going to be here 6 years. And I was really negative about it. And then I thought, no, wait, actually, you have a choice here, right? You have a choice to either write this narrative as a positive experience and look back on it and let it be something that you remember in a positive light, or you have a choice to be a negative Nelly and be depressed about it and drag yourself down. And, I just made a choice. It was just every single day I would get up and I would go to work and I would approach my family with, today's going to be a great day. It's a perfect day for a Monday. Like, and I didn't believe it either, but
Take it
after
till
a
you make
while,
it.
I would go into colleagues' classrooms. We are going to be the best of friends. You just wait. And they would be like, and we were after a while, it became this thing that just kind of it manifested. And I always had a dad joke and I always had a funny or a popsicle stick joke or this or that. And I just, and I could naturally do that, but I think it became in a hard spot. I realized how helpful it was. And then it just became a bigger part of where I go when I'm in a tough space because it became a habitual thing.
Mm, so great. Sounds like you really just flipped it. Like you said, you flipped the narrative. You
Yeah.
decided we're going to have a great time, right? Like, we're going to have a great day and we're going to be the best of friends. And they look at you like, but
Yeah. Yeah. They would tell me, we thought you were kind of off a little bit. And I'm like, I am, it's cool, but it's true. We're gonna be friends. And they were like, okay. And we were. And when I left, it was a really, really hard place to leave. It became family. It really did. That place became home.
Mhm.
And thinking about that just seems so crazy. But that was a choice, right? That was a choice that I made. And we've done the same thing with Quincy and his situation. This is a choice. And this is a hand of cards we've been dealt. And yes, it stinks. And yes, it's not ideal. And yes, it's hard. But yes, we get to write the narrative too. We get to have a choice in how this plays out. And our surgeon told us, when Quincy was a baby, we saved his life. Let him live it. And so I try to remember that all the time. He's here and he may not be here in the most perfect form, but he's here. And however his life plays out and however he so chooses to let his little quirky self go through it, then we're here to help him make that happen.
Awesome, Erin. You have such a great attitude. It's like it is. It's like, you take lemons, you make the lemonade. You really
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I have a choice. And I second that. It's like, we have a choice. We can go down the tubes. We can let situations that are crazy and awful drag us down. And there are lots of them as a rare
Oh, yeah.
mother in our world right now. Hello. It's like, whoa. But we have today. And at least here in Florida, the sun is shining. It's hot and humid, so we have the
Yeah.
choice. And so how do we do it? And what I'm really hearing you say is, it's a habit. It's like, it's the habit. Humor is a habit. Like, if you think about the people, and it sounds like you're really one of them, Erin, and the people that I've known who are super funny, it's like they grew up with it and they actually it's a practice. I mean, to me, being funny is one of the highest arts. And I'm not talking about the really trashy funny, but really funny. You have to adjust your perspective. It's like flipping the narrative, adjusting the perspective. Which lens am I looking through? Because humor is just on the edge. It's like finding, you got to go into those cracks between what is ordinary, what is accepted, what is everyone's going to look at it and say, oh, that's how it is, or that's a really hard situation. But you have to look at it, and just to flip the narrative, go just to the other side of the line, which some people might, some of the people that I know that are super funny, it's an edge between funny and sanity,
Yeah.
just on that line. But
We
it's
used to do
beautiful.
an end of day review at our dinner table, when I lived next door to my sister during the pandemic, and she's got a kiddo with special needs, cerebral palsy, and a hypoxic birth injury. So she's, brain matter lost, and, she struggles. She'll be 7 this month, and she's sassy as all get out. But we live right next door to each other. And, my sister and I would trade duties and we would laugh, like my niece, CP, she's stiff, and we would tell her, bend your legs, Barbie. We would tell her, you gotta be funny, and you've gotta, we could call it out because we're the moms, right? And we could tease each other's kids because we're sisters, but you have to. And we did a daily review, and our daily review was, best and worst, how'd you fail today, and what made you laugh? And we always talked about failure, always. And then, how do we make that funny? How do we coin that? How do we make a t-shirt on that one, as we used to say, because everybody fails. And sometimes we fail a lot. And with poor Presley and Quincy, they just do, and because they're differently abled, so we teach them, you guys are differently abled, and you're going to fail because you're in a society of, round holes, and you guys are square pegs. And unfortunately, you don't walk across the board with holes that don't fit without tripping. It just happens. So, how do we make t-shirts out of these today? Is what we used to say.
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote that down about how humor and laughter feels bouncy, almost to kind of go to you, Erin, where it's like, is it pokey? But I was like, it's bouncy. It forces you to get out of a trudge or a stuckness that is I don't know. I'm reflecting yesterday, I was just grumpy. I was heavy, just in that I'm just a little bit stuck. And yeah, but it just makes you bouncy, and you can't it makes you just move, and even if it's an inch, whatever direction, it just helps you move. But it's funny because I feel like I laugh a lot and I'm very optimistic within relationships. But I think I'm realizing that in my own head, when I'm by myself, I don't think I'm actually very humorous. Like I think I take myself really seriously in my mind. And so it was interesting, Erin, like to hear your stuff. And I'm like, I need to be more purposeful of changing that narrative in my own mind, or like how to cultivate that in my relationship with myself, because I have no problem cultivating it with my relationship with other people. Like I'm the baby of 7, right? Like we make fun of each other, like, like you can't not laugh at things, but I'm realizing in my head that I'm like, I definitely need to cultivate that. And I don't know if I shared this with you guys or not, but there was a quote from a book that said, and she is raising a kid with rare diseases, but she said, there's room for sorrow in a house of joy. And I've actually been loving it the other side for me. Like, I feel like it's been my reminder of like, there's room for joy in a house of sorrow, right? When you're like, like when you're just like, don't want to, I'm like, oh, there's room. Like, and that's why it's such a great phrase, is it works completely both directions, whether you're like being joyous and you need to remember that you can still feel sad, or whether you're feeling super sad and grumpy and stuck and remembering like, oh, I can laugh about this. So it's written on my chalkboard behind me. It's my new quote, and it's not going anywhere for a while.
That's
It
great.
couldn't, I was really, I've always been good like at maintaining humor outwardly, and in my relationships as well. And it was my husband that pointed out, how I'm such a giant advocate for unconditional love. I love my friends that way. I love my family that way. And I am the same friend and I am the same family member at 2 a.m. when I'm exhausted with the flu as I am at 2 p.m. on a Friday. Like I just am. And I've always been that way. And I've had to adjust expectations that I can't put on what I would be as a friend onto other people. But then it was recently that he brought up, you love everybody unconditionally. Why don't you love yourself that way? Why don't you give yourself the same grace? And I was like, oh. I was like, you don't hear my self-talk. He goes, oh, but I do. He said, it's obvious. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, stink. And so, I've been working on that, it's like, because I'm dealing with like this adrenal insufficiency crisis right now because of all the stress. And it kind of hit my body like, with a ton of bricks over this last 2 years. And I've put on 60 pounds in the last 2 years, and I haven't changed a habit. And it's bizarre, and it's a cortisol situation, and I'm trying to remedy it. And, I still show up to bar class and I'm in my big girl pants, is what I call them, because I had to buy big girl pants. And, I've had to like learn to take Fat Amy to ballet class. And I just have learned, to just like stop being mean to myself about it, because that's not helping the situation, right? Like, yes, I'm dealing with a situation, and yes, it's super, super stinky, but stressing about it actually making it worse, right? Because the cortisol spikes then still spike, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had to make all these changes, and part of how I talk to myself, or how I talk to myself is a giant part of that.
Yes.
Who
Wow.
knew how timely that would be, right?
That's epic. 60 pounds in 2 years.
Oh, it's so bad. I have been literally,
You can't tell. I mean, you must have been very skinny because
I have been small all my life. And so then I started to have like gluten sensitivity issues, and that was weird. Pulled gluten out and then put it back in, and then didn't, so then that was its own problem. And then I have, so obviously the sensitivity of that. And then, yeah, I just started to notice that I couldn't handle hardly any sugars or carbohydrates at all. I'm sensitive to most grains. I have all these weird things. And then I did a hormone test, and my cortisol levels were outrageous. And I have like no progesterone in my body at all. And
Yeah.
then, I have ADHD. And so I've been medicated for that for a really, really long time. And so we've had to reduce that to,
Yeah.
give my adrenals a break. And so it's just lots of things that like the chronic stress, my physiology.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like it's the chronic stress. I mean, Erin,
Yeah,
you're meditating every day, right?
I definitely do my own form of it. I dance it out a lot. I sit still and I read.
I would try and sit still. I would listen to some of these great meditations on Insight Timer, just that are like doing body and deep relaxation. I would really up your
Yeah.
relaxation level. I'm all for dancing. Dancing is
Mhm.
Yeah.
the
I've been
best.
forcing the sleep. Like they say, sleep is key, and I'm obviously a FOMO, to no extent. Like, I don't want to miss anything. But lately, I've been listening to my body, like, okay, it's time to go to bed. It's time to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And taking naps if that is what calls, and doing what I need to do. But I mean, it was a rude awakening too, because I've never had body issues. I've never had weight issues. I mean, I went into COVID with a home gym that looked like a CrossFit studio, and working out has always been my thing, and I was very fit. And then all of a sudden, like, things just started to happen, and I was like, but I'm still in the gym, but I'm still doing this. And it just happened anyway. And, my doctors think that it was the heavy workouts as a stress tool during COVID, on top of just the stress that everybody gets from COVID, it just finally took its toll. And my body didn't know how to differentiate workout, good stress, from trauma, bad stress.
Mm.
And it just was a recipe for disaster.
It's just that
Unknowingly.
reminder of the bothness, right? Where like
Yeah.
you have to nurture both sides, which is the activity. You've got to get your butt up and moving around. And then you also have got to sit down and shut everything off and
Yeah.
sleep and meditate. Like you got to do them both and find the right combination for the season that you're in and for what your body's asking for at the time. But like you got to have both,
Yeah.
and that's going to change throughout time, right? And your person, like again, in personality too, like my default is wanting to, like, I want to sit down. That's my default, and your default is I'm going to go run a marathon, and so it's like we both need to meet in the middle.
Yeah, that's been really hard. I can't work out the way I used to. And I used to love to run. That was a form of meditation for me. Was
Yeah.
going on a 5 or 6 mile run, and nothing had to happen in my brain. And that was the one time that I would like feel really, really peaceful, because I
Yeah.
would just smile because I was just listening to music and
Yeah.
running and moving, and I can't do that right now.
Because your body it'll hurt.
Well, it responds to it as stress, and it makes my problem worse. My cortisol levels are elevated, and they stay that way for a really long time. I have like low cortisol in the mornings, and then I have a problem at night because it goes way up. And so, like, I have a hard time regulating that. And so running makes it worse. And right now I just joined a Pure Barre studio, and that's what I'm doing. It's a lot slower and more
Yeah.
mellow, but it's still
It's not
exercise.
It's not aerobic, but it's very strengthening.
Yes, and so it helps, but right now I got to work on, I seeing, somebody and talking about, how did the stress get to this point? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, hello, you
Yeah.
know,
Have
Yeah.
you used any like light therapy stuff? Like have you heard of SAD, like the seasonal affective disorder lights?
I've heard of these, and I've thought about getting one for my office since I'm in here so much.
Yeah, so
Um,
I bought one because I feel like I definitely have some. Well, I live in Seattle, and like some seasonal, like it's just gray. And then also I have something called PCOS, which is a endocrine disorder, so it's hormone related. So I was reading books and they were talking about how like getting outside, like getting sunshine first thing in the morning, going out at noon and getting sunshine, and like those kinds of things can really help again tell your body like this is when we release hormones, right? Because it's a cortisol, all of that stuff. So they're cheap on Amazon. Like I got a middle of the road one for like $40, and sometimes I just sit in this chair in the morning, drink my coffee, like turn on the light for half an hour.
Help a lot.
Yeah, and it's also like it has helped me just because like pairing things, but it's like it also just gets me to sit down, and then it's nice to get to enjoy my coffee. I get to like read books, like all of these like habit pairings that work.
yeah,
That could be like an easy thing to try to add in and see if it could help, because I just know that light can help regulate your what is it called, the term for your 24-hour like circadian rhythm. Thank you.
yeah, mine's definitely not normal, and it's it's hard too because it's hard to find somebody that will recognize adrenal or endocrine issues. My lab tests come back sort of within normal range other than the progesterone, and so they always say, oh, you're fine, especially in military medicine. And so
Have you gone to a naturopath or some kind of alternative person?
they don't cover it. TRICARE doesn't cover it.
You need to
And
go
so
in. You need to
I
go.
know,
You do.
I know.
Because because that's what happens. I mean, allopathic medicine has its place for sure. My father's a doctor, he's a doctor for 50 years. But I think that there's a place where they're like, oh, your levels are fine. And then they just start prescribing drugs, and they don't look at you like a whole person. And so sometimes you have to go dig deeper, especially because of all like the food sensitivities. And honestly, actually something that occurs is hypnosis. Just do a little hypnosis, see if they'll cover that. Sometimes they do, because you could actually, like, your body is confused about stress. Like, it's not able to discern between the good stress and the bad stress, right? So in a way, hypnosis might be able to address that at a subconscious level, because your body is confused,
Yeah.
it's confused. So what if you could help it to clarify, help it to sort of be like, oh, wait a minute, because there is a distinction between stress types.
That's interesting because it is, because probably because I'm so hyperactive and I've always been that way. My body's like, it's hyper energy no matter what. And so, that's probably part of it.
ADD adds a whole layer of complexity to it, for sure. Well, I
I've had
really,
to give up caffeine and everything.
what did you say?
I said I've had to give up caffeine, coffee, like all of it, and so it's a doozy.
That is a doozy. My partner has ADD and he drinks a lot of coffee. I mean, maybe not a lot, but like 3 cups a day, solid. And this is like huge cups that are really nutty. Doesn't affect him. ADD is its own zone. But I think the thing that's so important is about the humor is like, how do we flip that narrative? Like, I know I do it in my own head. Sometimes if I like make a mistake, then I just have to laugh at myself, laugh at the absurdity of what I've done. Because if I don't laugh, I'm going to get on my own case. I'm going to start giving myself grief for messing up, for having not thought it through clearly enough, whatever the thing might be. So it's like, can I laugh? It's kind of like, can we cut ourselves some slack? Like, life is tense. And humor is like, oh, well, like you're cooking something, you make this beautiful thing. And then instead of, you add just like, you look at the recipe and you add too much salt. Well, too much salt is hard to come back from. It's not impossible, but it's hard to come back from. So it's like, oh, well, there goes all that, effort, so I feel like just flipping the narrative, just being easy with ourselves and goofy. And I love that you're saying, like, I have to bring Fat Amy to ballet class, and also, I mean, I'm older than y'all, but it's like the body definitely changes as we age, and it's no amount of Peloton or running or this or that is gonna, do it. And you know what? We're going to get wrinkles, and we're going to get pimples, and we're going to get sores, and we're going to get God knows what we're going to get. And we just have to laugh at it, just like, because laughter, also the thing about laughter, right, is it makes room in the system. There's a physiological response to laughter, right? So all of a sudden, where I was like, oh, this is so annoying, frustrating, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, this is silly. This is over the top, and so in relationship, as it seems like you all are doing, you just bring that in when things start to get tense. And then we just make a joke. It's like, you know what? I'm just not going to go down the spiral of conflict, which definitely creates cortisol in our systems and, stress. And, it diffuses tension. It creates space. I mean, the other day, I don't know what happened. My partner was saying something and I just thought it was the funniest thing. It wasn't even funny, but it was the funniest thing. And all of a sudden I found myself just in stitches at whatever he was talking about. And he looked at me like, what's going on with you? But I was just laughing, and it made everything just relax. Laughter is like, oh, we can relax. We can let go. So, I mean, they have, you probably know, they have whole like laughter meditations, laughter therapy. Laughter is a form of therapy. Years ago this is in my book, actually, years ago when I was in India, they have something called the Mystic Rose Meditation. It's 3 weeks long. This is when you don't have any kids, it's 3 weeks long, and you're in an ashram. And 1 week is laughing, 1 week is crying, and 1 week is stillness. and you line up, you lay on the floor and everyone's on their backs, and you put your head on someone else's belly, and someone else has their head on your belly, and you're just strewn out across a big room. And then people start laughing, and someone's laughing on your belly, and then you're laughing. And it just, I mean, that phrase, ripples of laughter, it's real. It's like someone says something and someone says something else, and all of a sudden you're laughing. You don't even know what you're laughing about, but you're just laughing. And it's just creating so much room.
I noticed too that when, I kind of made that conscious choice, right, to bring humor in and it's a twofold thing. I noticed that it was increased my vulnerability, right, and which also kind of required a thicker skin, so to speak, or a bigger source of comfort with myself, to open yourself up to that. Like with my students, for example, my fifth graders in particular, I would hold, we would hold review sessions regularly, or we call them tune-ups, and they would tune me up. And we would talk about ways that I could increase or improve my teaching, right? And we would talk about that. Hey, we're not doing good at this or that. And my job is to teach you. So your job is to help me, right? How do I give you what you need? And we would talk about these things. And oftentimes these turned into really big laughter episodes. And they would reenact sometimes my teaching. And some of the mannerisms and some of the things that I would do and say are hysterical, and it was like, and they would reenact it to the most like highest degree of perfection. And I was like, that is so me, and then, you'd laugh about it. But like, if I didn't have a thick skin, right, or didn't appreciate and value that, that would have been a stressful situation, and it would have perpetuated to be a poor teaching moment over and over and over again, and then at home, if you can laugh about it, you're opening yourself up again to, against, in some ways, the fear of judgment by others, because you're laughing at something that you did or didn't do right or didn't do perfectly. But oh well, right? And so that's a big thing, that vulnerability piece. I think that taps into that failure piece that we talk about a lot at home, because it's funny. Like, you can learn from things, you
I,
know?
I don't know if it's like, I think like laughing at yourself requires us maybe not to have a thick skin, but to not take it personally, and to know
Yeah.
that we're just laughing at, like, this is like a drama. It's happening on a world stage. It's happening on a screen. It has really nothing to do with us. And in a moment, we went into a trance. We did this or that. And I mean, I love that you let your students, what sounds like, I was going to say, like, mimic your
Oh,
mannerisms, and you would just crack up. I mean, in a
yeah.
way, like when we do that, that's actually a good reminder how we can mimic each other in the right context and have it be hilarious. Like years ago, well, not even, because we still dance, but when how you can know how people dance, and then you like mimic them, and then their thing, and it's just goofy. And like, just to realize that it's coming from love, that it's coming from your heart. And in this case, it was coming from you wanting to be a better teacher, and them being willing, because actually it's very vulnerable for them to mimic their teacher and think like, she's not going to get mad, she's not going to get hurt, because obviously they loved you, I'm sure. So yeah, how mimicking in the right moment, and that bringing that spirit of play, it's kind
Right.
of tease apart the spirit of play and humor, because they're kind of,
It was big. We would always, pull it around full circle and say, how do we fix this, right? What did we learn from this? A reflection point. What can I do better based on this? And at home we do it too. My kids reenact my husband's temper tantrums all the time. And it's really funny. They're like, ready for dad's tantrum number 7,652, and then they go for it. And it's so funny. And he laughs too. And usually it's silly things like his coffee spilling in the car, or just something silly.
I think it's
But
because it like forces you to accept things, right? Like it forces you to like look at something, and like if you aren't ready to accept it, like you still think that you can fix it, right? Like if you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about it because you're taking it personally, right? Because you're like, oh, I haven't fully accepted that, like this is my body and I got to take it to bar, or like I'm a human who makes funny faces when I talk, because we all do, right? Like everybody looks crazy if you take a picture at the wrong time. Like that's just a part of being a human with a face. And so but it requires a level of acceptance of just being like, yeah, this is it. I do something, right? I do something silly, and that's just okay. You can acknowledge it. We can acknowledge it, right? It's real.
yeah,
and it
I
doesn't
know.
mean that anything's wrong with us.
Right.
It's not, you're not bad or wrong. like we just have these limitations. We have these, we have these mannerisms, we have these habits. And the more we can laugh at them, actually, the more it kind of breaks them up, right? Because otherwise they just congeal. They congeal into, scowls and things, but like laughter just totally like makes your whole face like, it just it breaks things up. It feels like it breaks up crustiness that we walk around with when we think the same thought over and over and over. It's never going to change. I'm this way. It's like, but when you laugh about it, it's like, well, it makes it less real.
Yeah. I mean, and it is what it is, right? You got to be humorous about your reality because your reality is what it is. And you can help write your narrative, but your circumstances sometimes aren't going to change, right? Like we were stationed in middle of nowhere, Montana, and I don't do well with snow, so that was, so it was just one of those things. You have to laugh about certain things, and you have to be vulnerable to the ability to do that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, I wrote this down during the reflection time, but because the phrase laugh so you don't cry came to mind. But I was actually thinking, I'm like, I think that you laugh so you can cry and you cry so you can laugh. Again, it's like that bothness where it's like you're not doing one instead of the other, but you need to have both, right? Like you have to like get through like the hard emotions and accept them and then be able to laugh at it on the other side and then cry again when you have a different like version of the thing that you need to now accept, right? Every day is a new day, that offers you something new to accept. And so it's just like laugh so you can cry and cry so you can laugh.
True.
Yeah, because you got to experience both ends of those emotions, Like I remember when I was going through the diagnostic process of ADHD, and they put me on like this Wellbutrin thing, right? Because they always try out like with women, right? They check and make sure you're not bipolar before you're ADHD or something. And so my therapist put me on this Wellbutrin for a month, and it was the worst experience of my life. I was 19, 18, and she put me on this thing, and didn't have any highs or lows. It was the worst. I told her, I was like, that was literally the worst experience of my life. I couldn't cry and I couldn't laugh. And I said, that was so not me. So not me. So I'm like got all this nervous, hyperactive energy, but I can't have any emotion in it. And it was the worst. And she was like, we're gonna get rid of that one then. But it was terrible. And like you've got to have the bothness, right? You've got to have both. I wouldn't feel me if I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at is I feel like I've been a little bit in like a temper tantrum of like annoyed at the bothness or like being kind of exhausted by the bothness of life. And that's like, again, there's going to be seasons of that. But I think I'm now like coming through some stuff and just being like, of course it is. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm not going to like try running away. Now I'm kind of like laughing where you're like, look at me, little human, trying to be like, no, I refuse to let life be complicated. And you're like, okay, like that is just like, I got to laugh about it. Like that is just so silly to think that I'm in charge of this,
Yeah, that's it. That's really it. It's like laughing at our own. I think you nailed it right there. It's like laughing at any idea that we can control reality. It's like, that's just like the biggest joke. And we think we can. Well, if I do this and I do this and I do this, I will secure my whole situation. Well, guess what? Life is going to do what it's going to do anyway. And that's not to say that if like the power goes out, you want to have some flashlights, you want to have some candles, maybe you want to have a generator, whatever. But it's like the power's going to go out sometimes. And then you're going to get to be in the dark. And then you might get to be without one of these things for a little while. Like, whoa, what a concept, So yeah.
That makes me giggle thinking of my kids dealing without that, we had the power go out one time and they were like, "Hey, do we still have water?" Like they had no idea. Like their phones didn't work, nothing worked. Do we still have water?
Oh,
now you get to the things you actually can't live without. You can live without electricity. You can't live without water for very long.
It's true. Luckily, the power goes out, you still have water, which is a blessing, hot water. It's like if you have hot water and then you have a gas stove, you're kind of all right,
Yeah.
But
Wi-Fi?
to learn to live discomfort of that kind from time to time,
Yeah.
So did anyone have any thoughts? Susie, did you have any thoughts about like this group moving forward? Is there anything you would like, or did you have any time to think about that, or just off the cuff?
Yeah, off the cuff. Sadly, I did not. I remember you mentioning it last week. But generally, I have been liking the format, and I like the kind of prompts and then just discussion, the organic. Again, I like a little bit of structure and then just kind of letting it flow. So it works great for me
Okay.
in
great.
this style. So
You wouldn't, and it would be fine to kind of go through these same topics again, or should I like search around? I mean, I could morph the topics. I feel like we use, as I said last time, we use the topic as a jumping off point for wherever we need to go. And I want it to be still be like, oh, this is like something new we can take a bite of, you know?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth. I don't even remember what the subjects are now. Probably like if we listed them, I'm sure they'd sound familiar. But I can see, I don't know, I think I kind of trust you to mix and match and see when it needs some new spice. And also, I think it could be great to have them go through so that you realize, oh, that's a great reading for the grief week, and you can like save it up, right? So sometimes it's nice that predictability is
Yeah.
good, and then also keeping it from being stale. So
Yeah.
I trust you to navigate that.
Yeah. Great. That's helpful.
I don't think it needs to be new every week.
No, I don't think so. It's more like the overarching structure. Do we change? I mean, we're going to keep it, you know, Rare Mothers in Relationship for now, and then maybe down the line we'll open it up to what did we say, Erin? Like care. It's basically opening up to all genders at some
Mhm.
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep
Rare-
thinking
rare
that
families.
in
Pardon,
my
what
head
was
too.
your word? What was your phrase? What was that phrase
my
again?
rare givers.
Caregivers, right? Caregivers.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a word nerd. I keep thinking of like a book study format
Word
almost.
nerded is right up my alley. It's like when you
Oh,
can like riff on words, that is some of the most fun that you can have.
I was the rap star in the math class. Let me tell you, there was not a day that didn't come about when I was teaching math that I couldn't make a rap song about what we were doing. Such a bad one, but man.
Well, that's helpful, Susie. And then Erin, I know we want to set up a time for me to talk to Crystal.
Yeah, I have some time for you. I'll send you in an email here in a few minutes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, so good to be with you both and to have Phyllis here for a moment, and we missed Laura and others today. And Erin, I don't know if you want to reach out to some of our regulars. Like we haven't seen Meg for a moment. I'm wondering if
Yeah.
it's her new job or something else is going on.
Yeah, and I know that Laura probably is COVID-tastic dealing with all that right now, right?
Well, did her
She had
family,
to,
well, I know Dave got it, but did her family
right.
end up getting COVID?
Well, I don't know, but remember her son was going to be having like an intensive therapy or something like that, and they were trying to keep everybody healthy. I wonder if they're knee deep in trying to get all that orchestrated. I'll
Right.
reach out to her and see.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, have a beautiful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you both next week.
All right.
Sounds
See you
good.
later.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Susie.
Take
Bye.
care. Laugh a lot.